Iran has just fired the Sejil ballistic missile at Israel for the first time in this war. One of the most serious weapons in Iran's entire arsenal, it is traditionally reserved for final stage escalation. They call it the dancing missile, not because of its appearance, but because of what it does to missile defense systems. During last summer's conflict, fragments from a single Sejil warhead reached Israeli soil after the arrow system failed to neutralize it fully. Now, it has returned in significant volume at the worst possible moment. On Sunday, March 15th, the 54th wave of Operation True Promise 4 escalated as sirens went off across more than 140 locations in Israel. From Tel Aviv to Herzliya to the southern suburbs, missile debris struck a residential building used by the U.S. consulate in Jerusalem. The debut of this monster weapon occurred less than 24 hours after U.S. officials reported that Israel is running critically low on the interceptors built to stop exactly this kind of threat. The Sejil is not a conventional ballistic missile. It is a medium-range, solid-fueled, two-stage weapon that Iran designed and built entirely on its own. Most people hear ballistic missile and picture a weapon flying in one large arc, easily trackable by a modern defense shield. The Sejil does not work that way. Its warhead carries a maneuverable re-entry vehicle. As it descends at speeds above Mach 5, it does not follow a straight path. Instead, it shifts direction continuously and unpredictably. This is why it is called the dancing missile. A standard interceptor like the Arrow calculates where a warhead will land and sends a kill vehicle to that point. When the landing point changes every fraction of a second, that calculation falls apart. The only option is to fire multiple interceptors in a spread pattern and hope one connects, which burns through stockpiles at an alarming rate. Furthermore, the Sejil runs on solid fuel, meaning it sits fully loaded on a mobile launcher ready to fire in minutes. There are no fueling trucks or lengthy preparations visible to satellites. Iran has stated that from the city of Natanz, the Sejil reaches Tel Aviv in under 7 minutes. Because it launches from trucks, not fixed sites, it survives even when bases and facilities are destroyed. The dual-layer problem of detection and interception is now degraded simultaneously. Israel's Arrow 3, designed to engage threats outside the atmosphere using hit-to-kill technology, depends on precise tracking. A reduced radar signature shortens the detection window and compresses the time available to launch an intercept. The Arrow 2 faces the same degradation compounded by the warhead's active maneuvering. This deployment coincides with a second crisis. On Saturday, March 14th, reports stated that Israel had informed America it is running critically low on ballistic missile interceptors. Israel entered this war already short on Arrow-class interceptors after the June 2025 conflict. While 16 days of sustained bombardment across 54 waves has pushed the system toward a breaking point, the Israeli government approved the emergency transfer of 6 billion shekels, approximately $826 million, to the Defense Ministry for urgent procurement. This is not the behavior of a government that considers its stockpiles adequate. It is a government writing emergency checks at midnight. Amidst this physical conflict, an information war is unfolding. On March 12th, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu appeared on camera claiming Israel is crushing Iran. Within hours, mainstream Western commentators and ordinary citizens began asking if the video was real. Rumors of AI-generated content spread, pointing to compression artifacts as evidence of manipulation. While Netanyahu is confirmed to be alive, the doubt reveals the information environment Israel has deliberately constructed. Since February 28th, Israel has imposed a near-total media blackout on damage imagery. International journalists cannot move freely to impact sites, and domestic media operates under military censorship. Footage of what cluster munitions do to neighborhoods and the real casualty figures are suppressed. This institutional decision has created a vacuum that the internet is filling with speculation. Netanyahu's son, Yair, a prolific social media user, has been silent for days, and the government's official plane was photographed in Berlin, though without the prime minister on board. The blackout, designed to protect the population from psychological impact, has instead turned every unusual signal into raw material for Iranian propaganda. The information blackout is hiding verified facts. 6,500 buildings have been damaged inside Israel, according to insurance claims. 500 vehicles have been destroyed. By day 10, the Israeli military confirmed that approximately half of all Iranian ballistic missiles were cluster munitions, carrying between 24 and 80 submunitions each. The interception rate for these submunitions is 0%. Even when a missile is intercepted, it can release its payload, depositing live explosive devices across urban areas. This makes the ground dangerous even after the all-clear siren. The psychological effect of not knowing whether a park or playground is safe is qualitatively different from any previous attack. The IRGC has explicitly stated its goal is to make Israeli citizens leave by making the cost of remaining feel higher than the cost of demanding an end to the war. The gap between a government claiming victory and a population finding live bomblets in their streets is a divide that official press conferences cannot close. The strategic map of the Middle East was rewritten on February 28, 2026, when the United States and Israel launched simultaneous strikes against Iran. These were not surgical strikes. They were the most significant opening salvos of a major war in the 21st century. The operation killed Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, decapitating the Iranian command structure in a single night. However, this removed every remaining incentive for Iranian restraint. Iran is no longer fighting for a program or influence. It is fighting for its identity and survival. Within hours, Iran activated its full arsenal. Hundreds of missiles, thousands of drones, and its Mosquito fleet of fast attack craft. The conflict has pulled 9 countries into its orbit, making every major energy infrastructure site in the region a potential battlefield. The U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet in Bahrain has been struck multiple times, and American troops in Kuwait and Saudi Arabia have faced relentless drone and missile waves. The center of gravity in this conflict is the Strait of Hormuz. On the second day of the war, Iran announced the waterway was closed. Since then, tanker traffic has dropped toward zero, with over 150 ships stranded. Approximately 20% of the world's crude oil and liquefied natural gas passes through this 21-mile-wide choke point. There is no viable pipeline alternative. Iran does not need to fully close the strait to cause damage. It only needs to make it dangerous enough that insurance companies refuse coverage. On March 5th, 7 of the world's largest insurers withdrew coverage for the Gulf, making freight costs explode. Brent crude surged past $110 per barrel, representing a tax on the entire global economy. Analysts warn that if the disruption continues, oil could reach $200, potentially triggering a global recession. The International Energy Agency authorized a record release of 400 million barrels from strategic reserves, but this only covers about 20 days of normal traffic. The economic crisis extends to global food security. Nearly 50% of global urea and sulfur exports, critical for fertilizer, transit through the strait. Nitrogen fertilizers, made from natural gas, are essential for feeding 8 billion people. When energy and fertilizer supplies are disrupted, crop yields fall and food prices rise globally. The United Nations World Food Program has issued explicit warnings that this conflict is driving a long-term increase in global food prices, reminiscent of the 2022 crisis, but on a much broader scale. Simultaneously, the U.S. is facing a diplomatic crisis. On March 16th, Donald Trump threatened the future of NATO after the UK, Germany, France, and Japan refused to send warships to the Strait of Hormuz. Germany stated clearly that this is not NATO's war, and France vowed not to be drawn into a U.S.-led coalition. While the West argues over warships, India quietly negotiated the passage of 2 tankers through diplomacy, proving that the blockade is political rather than geographic. The unipolar moment, characterized by the assumption that the world will follow American leadership, is under structural pressure. Iran rejected ceasefire proposals because it recognizes that American threats no longer produce automatic compliance. Trump's strategy of maximum shock has resulted in maximum isolation, as traditional allies make independent calculations for their own economic survival. As the war enters its 3rd week, the human cost continues to mount. Over 1,400 have been killed in Iran, with millions displaced. In Lebanon, hundreds have died, including over 100 children. The use of white phosphorus has been documented in conflict zones. In Washington, the administration is trapped between the options of withdrawal, which would end American primacy, or escalation, which would involve a mountainous terrain and a deeply motivated population of 90 million. The Sigil and the hypersonic Fata-2 are signals that the rules of deterrence have changed. The assumption that modern air defense could protect populated centers, or that the Strait of Hormuz would remain a reliable artery, has been proven dangerously optimistic. This is no longer just a regional conflict. It is a global story. The decisions made in the coming weeks in Washington, Jerusalem, Tehran, and Riyadh will shape the world for the next decade. The interceptors are running low, the tankers are not moving, and the price of everything is changing. The world that exists when this conflict ends will not be the same as the one that existed before the first missiles fell. Geography has proven to be a structural advantage that no amount of naval power can eliminate. The question that remains is whether a diplomatic pathway can be found before the economic damage becomes irreversible. The pressure is building, the strategic clocks are ticking in opposite directions, and the entire world is waiting to see who blinks first.